And hello once more, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 72 of A Druid's Dozen. Yep, my name's John, I'm the Rock Druid, and been record collecting and DJing for many years. Currently got a couple of radio shows. There's the Sunday Rock Show on BCFM radio, 93.2 FM in Bristol. And then there's the Rock Druid Show, which is on astroradio.earth, the international astronomy and music station. Yeah, well, so I've been record collecting for many years and DJing, and this is me dragging a dozen records out, 6 on CD, 6 on vinyl, waving in front of the camera, and just chatting about them for a bit and giving you my opinion for what it's worth. So without further ado, I shall put the bins on, and we shall dive straight in with a bit of UK sleaze. Here we go. This is 1989, a graveyard of empty bottles by the Dogs the Moor. There's the front. There is the back. Slide this out. There's the disc, China Records, a great label back in the day. And no, there's nothing on the Run Out Groove apart from the catalogue number. Now, Dogs the Moor were part of the British sleaze rock movement, which was a kind of UK arts response to the American glam metal. I mean, with all the hair metal stuff coming out the States, you know, your Poisons, your Motley Crues and that. There was a number of British bands, the Dogs the Moor, other ones include like the Wild Hearts, the Babysitters are another one, that kind of took that kind of big American glam image and sound, and they basically made it kind of, they Britishized it. They the glam and the glitter became kind of down at heel sleaze. The cock rock strut became a kind of sub Rolling Stones kind of introspective kind of look, and yeah, it was quite popular for a little bit. You know, the sort of the choir boys were quite popular, had a few hits. They gave rise to the Wild Hearts that are still going. And the Dogs the Moor, of course, had their moment in the sun as well. Band out of London, 4-piece outfit, as you can see, very, very sleaze rock. And this here is an acoustic mini album they released, which is their best-selling thing, full stop. Yes, they did have a fairly substantial hit with a track called Satellite Kid a couple of years later, but this remains their best-selling release. It's an 8-track sort of mini album. It's an acoustic stripped-down rendition, some original material. It's all original material, some of which have been on their previous singles and album. Some of which would turn up as an electric versions on later records. And a couple of cuts that are like Angel, So You Shall Be, which were completely unique to this. It is very, very good. I can understand why it is sold in quite substantial numbers. It showcases what a great band the Dogs the Moor were. Believe me, out of all those kind of British sleaze rock bands, the Dogs were probably easily my favourite, and I think in most people's opinions, easily the best of that crop. You got the vocalist Tyler, very much a kind of gutter poet, wrote some fantastic lyrics and could churn out a good song. Working with the rest of the band, what was it? Yeah, Joe Dog on guitar, Steve James on bass, and Bam Bam on drums. All of which, you know, pulled together into a tight unit that kind of churned out some great tracks. On this one, you got things like the opening cut, I Think It's Love Again, So Once Was I, Comfort the Devil's Saviour, Bulletproof Poet, Errol Flynn. It's all kind of quite downbeat on here because it's an acoustic and unplugged, but they're quite moving, they're quite great songs. Dogs to the Moor are also a great live band, providing you caught them with the right level of alcohol. The early days, they had that. I saw them a few times. If they got too drunk on stage, they became a mess. And then towards the end of the band's career, although they still do reform, when they were trying to go dry, they tended to be a bit uptight and awkward on stage. But get that alcohol balance, you know, when they were kind of drunk enough to not really care and be, you know, and have a natural performance, but yet not completely out of it, so it became a mess. They were absolutely storming. Yeah, bands still do occasionally reform with various lineups for one-off gigs, and there's an occasional album. I don't think there's been one since about 2012. But anyway, recommend that if you're not come across the Dogs to the Moor, hastily recommend them. And this is a pretty good one to start. Dynamite Jet Saloon album, if you want some of their more rocky plug stuff. But yeah, Dogs to the Moor, Graveyard of Empty Bottles, 1989. So, oh, quick one. This is the 12-inch version. There was a limited edition 10-inch pressing of this, which is now quite collectible. But this is the bog standard 12. So yeah, good stuff. Dogs to the Moor. Okay, our first CD and our first of our two guitar heroes for today. This is quite an interesting packaging on this one. There's the front, and it folds out lustily. As you can see, there's it's a kind of stencil cut bits and pieces on here. There's the inner sleeve, whereas you in a gatefold, sorry. Oh, and this is, by the way, Shockwave Supernova by Joe Satriani. Came out 2015, I think. 2015, yeah. And if I slide this out here, we've got an inner sleeve with that on the front, that on the back, and there's the disc there. Now, if you don't know, Joe Satriani, guitar hero bloke. I can't remember who he's actually played with band-wise, but yeah, known for doing sort of like shred and whittle guitar albums. He's very impressive with it, and you know, I've got a few albums by. I haven't got a complete set. I've got to admit, I do find this kind of guitar instrumental music a bit tiresome. Not knocking the performance or anything like that. I'm just saying that I can only take so much sort of like atomic shred and whittle before it gets boring. You know, when it comes to guitar players, I do prefer people like Carlos Santana, who's coming up in a bit, or maybe Rory Gallagher, that can give it a bit of melody. Although, to be fair, this album isn't quite so much over the blown shred and whittle as some of the other stuff you can get. We're actually working with a band now, names of which forgets me, but there's a keyboard player on here that he actually works with rather than solos over. And you know, as a band, they do interplay more. Yeah, I think there's an album I've got by Chris Impatileri, which is just like a 40-minute guitar solo that is boring as hell. So he does keep it just about on the interesting side, especially on tracks like San Francisco Blues, Scarborough Stomp, yeah, a phase I'm going through, etc. It's all good stuff, although like many of this sort of like guitar shred and whittle merchants, it does tend to blur into one in my brain, yeah, as you go through the album. And but you know, for listening to a couple of tracks at a time, it's not bad, and I'm not knocking Mr. Satriani's talent or technical ability at all. It's a tight album, it's well produced, it's well played. It's just that it's an instrumental guitar metal album, and I do tend to find that whole genre, unless it's an exceptional record like Andy James's War March album, a little bit dull. But yeah, if you like that kind of thing, this is as good as any. Shockwave Supernova by Joe Satriani from 2015. Okay, next up we'll have a change of gear. And now I'm not dragged out for my own listening pleasure, and I thought I'd bring it the other week, and I thought I'd bring it to you today. There we go. This is, of course, American Pie by Don McLean, originally 1971. Although, I'll show you in a second, this is a Fame label reissue from the early 1980s. There's the back, by the way. There we go. There's the disc. Like I said, Fame label reissue. Fame were a they were EMI. Yeah, only catalogue number on the pressing. Fame was EMI's sort of like a budget label. Stuff that was on the EMI catalogue. The popular albums will get a cheap price thing. I think this one cost me $2.99 or $1.99 or something back in the early 80s, and yeah, it was kind of budget reissues of classic EMI label albums or EMI family of label albums. Anyway, I won't say too much about this because there's not a great deal much to say. Like many people, my first experience of Don McLean was American Pie, one of these seminal and more, tracks. I think the actual lyrics of that are now invested in the Library of Congress in the States. It's the American Dream kind of analysed by old Don there. Then there's so I like the track. Brought the single, which if you ever seen the single version of American Pie, it's actually divided in half. They've got sick and tired of having to turn the 45 over to play the second half, so I went and got the album, and it's quite good. And then gave it a listen. Began to discover tracks like Sister Fatima, Vincent, Crossroads, Till Tomorrow, Babylon, and I began to realise that old Don McLean is actually a damn fine and talented songwriter with some interesting stuff to say. And yeah, I've got a couple of other albums by him now. My favourite Don McLean track is probably Castles in the Air, the original version, the slow version, but that's on Tapestry, not on this. But, this is a damn sweet album. It's well played. Like I said, unfortunately, because this is the reissue, it hasn't got the inner sleeve, I can't tell you who else plays on it apart from Don himself. But overall, some great kind of modern contemporary folky singer-songwriting for Mr. McLean, and the iconic American Pie as a title cut. Not much else to say. Just it's a really good album. If you've not really, and I would recommend, if you only really heard American Pie from Don McLean, explore some of his other stuff. This is a really good album to start with. But I'd also recommend Tapestry and Logistics as well. But yeah, American Pie, Don McLean, 1971. Cracking. Okay, so something obscurish now, also from 2015. This is Embrace the Fall That Brought Us Here by Aetherium. It's a 3-track EP. There's the front. There's the back. It opens out into a gatefold. There is absolutely nothing behind the disc there whatsoever. So there is the disc, and yeah, that's it. There's no booklet with it, there's no inlay card, it hasn't even got a personnel listing or any decent credits. Yeah, Apherium, they're a band out of Yeovil. Periodically, my band Alien Stash didn't get asked to play at an event called Kennet Fest, which is a small, rather nice small indoor festival, one-day event that's held down in Yeovil every year. Hasn't taken part for the last couple of years because of COVID restrictions, but they're hoping to pick it up again next. And you know, Alien Slash can go down there periodically and play, and you know, sort of some of the other bands on the bill. In 2017, I think it was, Apherium were on the bill with us, and I grabbed the album while I was grabbed this EP from them while I was down there. Pretty sweet. It's Aetherium are kind of based out of Yeovil, where the Kennet Fest is held, or that area at least, sort of southeast Somerset, and they kind of alternative metal. They, you know, they got metal sensibilities, but they've also got a bit of the old Biffy Clyros and kind of Don Brocco kind of alt rock kind of vibes to them. Make sure, but they're definitely at the heavier end of the alt rock spectrum, or at the alt rock end of the metal spectrum, on that grey area in between. And they're pretty sweet. If I remember rightly, they put on a pretty good live performance. And you know, there's only 3 cuts on here: Resolve, Embrace, and Ever Presence. Probably my favourite cut's the opening one, Resolve, but all 3 are pretty sweet and worth listening to. Whatever happens to Apherium, whether they're still going or whether they kind of bit the dust during the COVID crisis, I don't know. So you may need to do some digging to try and track this album down, or find out if the band's still going. I should have looked but forgot, sorry. But yeah, but they're pretty sweet, and if you do ever come across a copy of this, it's worth grabbing. It's not bad. Yeah, Embrace the Fall That Brought Us Here by Apherium, 2015. Good stuff. Okay, another vinyl. And here we go. Bit of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. This is Trilogy from 1972. There's the front. Folds out lustily. There's the inside that apparently was shot in some woods just outside London. And it's a composite photograph of loads of Emerson, Lake and Palmers hanging around various trees. Now, the interesting thing about this is it was originally released on Atlantic Records. Well, as far as I was aware, it was on Atlantic, but if I pull this out, Coalition Records. Which I know nothing about. Well, if anyone out there knows anything about Coalition Records, please let me know. Because I've honestly thought this was an Atlantic press, but it's not. Oh, there's an inner sleeve there, which has got some interesting other albums on this Coalition Records kind of label. Was it an American equivalent of the Fame label? I don't know, but anyway, it makes no difference. There's nothing on the run out grooves of this. I've already checked before I started filming. Yeah, Emerson, Lake and Palmer's 3rd studio album, 4th album overall, and yeah, just classic Emerson, Lake and Palmer. If you don't know, they're a bit of a sort of super group. Was it Keith Emerson, ex Nice, Greg Lake, ex King Crimson, Carl Palmer from the Sonic Rooster, making some really sweet keyboard driven prog rock, Hammond's a Go-Go, etc. Can be a little bit pompous and inaccessible when they really going for it, but overall Emerson, Lake and Palmer are sweet, and I do really like their stuff. This album here opens up with Endless Enigma, an 11-minute epic piece, which is kind of in several parts. Also includes Hoedown, which was an Aaron Copland piece of music. Aaron Copland was a bit of a prickly character, but you liked Emerson, Lake and Palmer. and he gave his American classical composer, if you didn't know, but he gave Emerson, Lake and Palmer permission to work on a few of his pieces, most noticeably Hoedown and Prayer for a Common Man. But yeah, the closing cut of Baden's Bolero, which is a big kind of, that's about 8.5 minutes of just prog rock, pseudo classical prog rock genius. Yeah, Trilogy's on here, the Endless Enigma's on here. Yeah, it's just absolutely belting record. One of Emerson, Lake and Palmer's best. One I hadn't really played for a while until I dragged this out the other day, and I gave it a listen, and it suddenly jumped straight up to into my favourite Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums. You know, there again, I mean, apart from Love Beach, most Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums are pretty damn sweet anyway. But yeah, if you're into your prog rock, if you want something to really kind of blow your minds away, if you really want to freak people out when they're completely drunk at parties, Emerson, Lake and Palmer's where to go. Yeah, yeah, Trilogy, 1972, good stuff. Okay, couldn't change a scene and change of gear as we go to an ocean colour scene. Boom, boom. There's the front. There is the back. Dark green on black. It's not very good for those of us with dodgy eyesight, so bear with me. Crack this open. Broken jewel case. God damn it. There's nothing behind the disc, but there is the disc. Pull this out. Oh, receipt from the charity shop that I brought it in, just in case. On here, there's just photo montage and credits. Now, Ocean Colour Scene, the band out of Birmingham, came out in the early to mid 1990s, which meant that any kind of rock band that wasn't playing something heavy or punky, and even some of those that were, immediately got slapped with a Britpop label. Now, at the time, the whole term Britpop put me off the music for, you know, I was younger then. I was a rocker. I don't want to listen to pop. And then I began to explore some of the stuff in hindsight. I began to realise that the whole Britpop thing was a complete misnomer. And, you know, there was some poppy throwaway stuff in there. And a load of rubbish like Oasis. But on the other hand, there were some damn fine bands playing some damn fine music that, you know, indie rock bands, kind of heavy rock bands, alternative rock bands, whatever you want to call them, that just happen to be tarred with the epithet Britpop. Ocean Colour Scene were one of them. On an earlier edition, I'll talk about their second album, Moseley Shoals, which is still one of my favourites from that period. But charity shop the other day, found this for 99p, so I thought, yeah, 99p for St Peter's Hospice. I think it was St Peter's Hospice. Anyway, 99p for local good cause, and I get an Ocean Colour Scene album out of it. Been thoroughly enjoying it. Yeah, I'll try and give you some tracks, but I can't really read them. There's Penny Pinching Rainy Heaven Days, which is quite cool if I remember rightly. Talk On, Blue Deep Ocean. It's all pretty sweet stuff. It's quite psychedelic. It's got kind of hints of early Pink Floyd, maybe. You know, you kind of, you know, Source for the Secrets. What is it? Piper at the Gates of Dawn vibe to it. Hints of bands like The Move, and you know, I like that stuff. So this is no bad thing for me. Very, very good, very well played. Maybe not as quite as impactful as their second album, Moseley Shoals, but it's still pretty damn good. I'm trying to remember when this came out. 1992. So yeah, maybe a little bit pre-Britpop, but still kind of yeah, damn fine. Out of interest, me and the missus once had a few beers with their drummer when we bumped into him in a Birmingham pub, playing in his other band that were a bit Thin Lizzy-ish, but they were quite cool. Anyway, nice guy. We've spent the evening having a couple of beers and chatting to him for a while. And yeah, and I like Ocean Colour Scene. If you don't like it, go bite me. I think they're still going, and I think all their albums are still available. But you know, if you want a bit of kind of, you know, middleweight alt rock with a psychedelic vibe, then check out their albums. And this is a good. This one and Mostly Shoals are probably the two to start with. Yeah, Ocean Colour Scene by Ocean Colour Scene, 1992. Okay, now I'm going to be careful what I say about this. The last time I waved an album by a list light in front of the camera, I had a couple of people commenting, well, does the world really need another Pink Floyd album review? My answer is yes. Okay, this is Darkside Lemon. This is probably their best known album. And there's only one reason I'm waving this in front of the camera today. And that's to celebrate the fact, after being into Pink Floyd since I first heard the Wall album back in 1980, or actually probably since the Another Brick single back in 79, the first time I really became aware of Pink Floyd. After listening to the band and collecting their records for so long, I have at last got a copy of Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah, just one of those events that kind of when the first copy of Dark Side of the Moon I had was a friend of mine, did the old home taping bit. You know, because like I said, I was a skint sixth former and couldn't afford the album, so I think I'll take him a couple of Crow albums, he'd take me a couple of Floyd albums, with the full intention that I'd end up getting the Floyd albums for visual when I could afford them. And then, as I sort of like moved on through life, I shared flats with various people, house shares, etc. And all of them had copies of Dark Side of the Moon. Until fairly recently, the last 10 years or so, when I eventually moved in with the missus, and I didn't have my previous flatmate moved out, and the missus moved in his place, I haven't had a copy of Dark Side of the Moon. So when I saw this in the charity shop, I thought, rectified. And it's given me there's the front, there's the back. Give me a chance to re-explore the album. There's the disc. And come at it with fresh ears, because I've got to admit, I hadn't played the album through in its entirety for a good few years. When was the last time I had access to a copy of this? About 15 years ago. So here you've got the photographs. A lot of this is what would have been on the gatefold, fold out, and posters and additional bump on the original vinyl, etc, etc, etc. And now this may be a bit controversial, but although this is a good album, this is a great album, I still prefer Animals and Wish You Were Here. Maybe it's because this is the one that everybody plays. This is the one that's played to death. You know, and there's a lot of the tracks on it. You know, like let's have a look. Actually, probably the whole album. You know, Great Gig in the Sky, Money, Us and Them, Brain Damage, Eclipse, On the Run, Breathe, Time. That, you know, I've heard that many times. That, do I really need to hear them again? Well, obviously, because I bought the album, but yeah, it made me think kind of like, you know, I know certain songs can get overexposed, but, you know, entire albums can get overexposed as well. Not knocking the fact that this isn't a brilliant piece of music, it's just that, you know, Floyd have done other albums, and yeah, I do prefer Animals. It's one of my favourite ones over this, and probably even Wish You Were Here as well. But, you know, I've got a copy at last. I can play it. You know, for DJ purposes, it's there. There is a track of this going on the Rock Druid this week. So yeah, Pink Floyd, Darkside Lemon, maybe an overexposed album, but still a classic all the same. Which reminds me that you know, I keep reminding say this, I can't do needle drops or play samples. The YouTube algorithm, especially Facebook's bad enough, but the YouTube algorithm hates it and will copyright strike this video for 5 seconds of Pink Floyd. So you know, hence the reason why a lot of this stuff is either it'll turn up over the next couple of weeks on my various radio shows. So tune into them if you want to hear some bits of these albums. Down there on YouTube, over there on Facebook, Finger Dance. There we are. So go check them out. Anyway, moving straight on, a bit more vinyl, and this is a strange one. This is the Full Circle by Nazareth from 19... Oh, I can't remember. Let's have a look. '81 or 80, something like that. 1980. Anyway, I've already got it out now, but there's the front cover. Love the artwork on that, rather bizarre. There's the back, which is just a plain thing. Now, interestingly, whether this was a mistake or whatever, not only has this got a lyric sheet and a credit sheet, the same thing is printed on the inner sleeve. There's the disc. It's a this one I think is a Dutch pressing, and just catalogue numbers all around that groove. Yeah. In my opinion, this is Nazareth's strangest album, and it's one that I've got a love-hate relationship with. You know, I like Nazareth overall, and you know, some albums of theirs, like No Means City, Hair of the Dog, I will turn around and say are absolute classics. Can't get that in. Oh, come on. But this album is one of these. I played it a couple of times since I dragged this out, decided to put it on today's show. And there we go. And I still get mixed reactions every time I play it. There's part of me thinks, wow, that is really different. There's part of me that says, what the hell are they thinking? This isn't a normal Nazareth album. This is Nazareth with a strong reggae beat. And I'm not sure whether it works or not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on the mood I'm in. But overall, I like the album. I just find it a bit strange, that's what I'm trying to say. You've got basically Nazareth, as was the want in those days, back in the 70s and 80s, got bumped off somewhere to record their record, their new album, and they ended up at Montserrat in the West Indies and Bahamas. And I was reading an interview with Pete Agnew, the bass player, and he was saying that you know, they went over there with a complete canvas, saying, "What we'll write while we're out there." And I spent a few weeks in the rehearsal room out in Montserrat and visiting other parts of the West Indies as well, on sort of day trips and weekends off, and started going to a lot of reggae bars and dance halls, and began to really pick up the whole reggae, West Indies reggae vibe, and consequently it entered into the music when they were recording Full Circle. You've got interesting. You've got a live version of Cocaine on here. The old Eric Clapton number. Is it JJ Cale? I can't remember. But anyway, that's on here. But the rest of it's all done in Montserrat. We Are the People, Moonlight Eyes, Dressed to Kill. It's all good stuff with a subtle kind of reggae backbeat. But you know, I don't know whether that works with Nazareth with Dan McCafferty's kind of I'm Being Throttled vocal style. But it does make for an interesting listen. One that I'll try before you buy. I wouldn't recommend that Nazareth Virgins jump straight in with this one. I'd recommend that you go for No Means City, Hair of the Dog, Show No Mercy, Expect No Mercy, one or two. But anyway, something like that to start with. Razamanaz is another good one. But on the other hand, you know, if you're getting your head around Nazareth, try it, you may like it. So try before you buy. Nazareth, The Full Circle, 1980. It's interesting. Okay, another CD now. And yeah, these turned up on last week's show, I know. But it's the Setbacks and their album Everything from 2019. There's the front. There's the back. Open it up. There's the gatefold. Pull this out. Got a sticker with it. There's the disc. And there's a note from the band. Now, last week I did their Bobby's Way EP, and I had a Facebook message off the Setbacks saying, "Hey mate, thanks for the review. We just realised we never got round to sending you our latest album." So he said it's a year or two out of date, but there we go. I mean, this came out at the tail end of 2019. I was planning to get the Setbacks into the BCFM studio for an interview. They're going to bring the album with them. We're going to pick through it and that. But obviously, we know what happened in early 2020. Yeah, exactly. It never happened. So I got this a bit late, but I've been listening to it and I've been enjoying it. This is a sweet record. From the opening cut, Young Jonathan's Ghost, you've got So, Run For Yourself, Government Hell, Cupid's a Motherfucker, Sally, Overthinking Today. 11 tracks of great Bristolian underground punk goodness. Like I said, punk of the old school. If you think Stiff Little Fingers, The Clash, the early Damned, that's the wicket these guys are batting off. They're nasty, they're feisty, they're angry, you're in your face. This is modern punk with attitude, and I love it. You got 5 guys, so I'll mention them all for just so you got Scott on vocals, AD on guitar, Neil on guitar, Lee on bass, and Pete on drums. Damn fine unit, can't fault them. Like I said, I've seen the Setbacks live a few times. I've gigged with them a few times with both my bands, and they're always entertaining. And believe me, they can do it on CD as well as on vinyl, as on the stage. So yeah, is available out on Mass Records, and a couple of other labels worldwide. But yeah, go to Bandcamp, you'll be able to find it there. Yeah, the Setbacks, Everything, 2019. Absolute corkers and a must for punks everywhere. Okay, next up we have this week's disappointment. Yeah, I know I did the Krokus' Metal Rendezvous last week, but that got me dragging out some more Krokus albums and listening to them. And I unfortunately dragged this one out. Yeah, there was his change of address from 1986. There, so there's the back, there's front, there's the back. Slide this out. Krokus there looking very uncomfortable, especially Mark Starachi there. He does not look comfortable at all. The rest of them are looking a little bit as well, but I'll cover all that in a minute. There's just the lyrics. No, just a catalog number on the Run Out Grooves and Arista Records. Right now, Krokus did really well for themselves. The string of albums from Metal Rendezvous with Headhunter, One Vice at a Time, another one in there as well, I can't remember, did quite well for themselves, and they got themselves a fair following in the US. So their record label, Arista, packed them off to the States, based them out of California for a few years, and tried to make them into what they were. You know, that's the big problem. Krokus were an AC/DC-like, very, very grounded European hard rock band. The American label decided to try and repackage them as a in the Poison, Motley Crue, Quiet Riot band, and you know, with a very few exceptions, us Brits and Europeans don't tend to do that. It's an American genre that the Americans are very good at. You know, let us rock and roll and sleaze in our own way, and don't try and shoehorn us into your, you know, whatever you want. You know, it destroys bands. Whitesnake. But anyway, I did a couple of albums out in the States, the Blitz and then this one, both of which are disappointing. The Blitz is very disappointing, and this is just throwaway. And you've got, it's understandable why this is just throwaway, because basically the band made a decision to leave the label, go back to Europe, where they belonged and felt more comfortable. Still had after the Blitz, they still had a album on contract. So this was thrown together and apparently in about 2 weeks flat. Minimum work for you know, to get an barely acceptable thing released. As soon as this came out, they quit the label, went back to Europe, and as far as I'm aware, they have never played anything off this album live. It was just, right, that's it, done, off you go. We're out of here. Change of address, audits, etc. It's all, you know, the record company headquarters being blown up. It's all hidden clues. Even the kind of I can't wait to get out of here looks on the band's faces. And like I said, it's a very forgettable album. Nothing on here really worth kind of raving about. There's a few hints of kind of interesting material, Hot Shot City maybe, and Burn Up the Night, but you know, very, very bad and disposable cover of Alice Cooper's Schools Out. Yeah, tracks like Say Goodbye, Long Way From Home, all disposable material, and probably put out that way. Probably one of the most interesting contractual obligation albums since Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Love Beach. But yeah, for Krokus completionists only, and if you want to get into Krokus, do not, never, ever, ever start with this album. It's terrible. Okay, last CD of the day, and something I've not been showing that often. I've got loads of compilation albums, single band compilations, best ofs, and that kind of thing. Don't normally wave them around, but I'm going to make an exception for this one because, well, it's Argent, and Argent are a band that I've always quite liked. Never heard anything that I didn't like by Argent. I even got some of Rod Argent's got one of Rod Argent's solo albums where it's all jazz and yeah. But Never really explored much of Argent itself. Like I said, I had some birthday money knocking around. I was in HMV Records in Bristol, found this for a ridiculously low price of $2.99. So I thought, right, okay, looked at the track listing, I recognised a few of the tracks, and there was a lot on here that I didn't. Thought I'd grab it. I grabbed it. So this particular compilation's a 2010 release, but not that makes a great deal of difference when it comes to compilation albums. It's called God Gave Rock and Roll to You, Argent's Greatest Hits. There's the front. There's the back. Pop this open. There is the disc. Nothing much behind the disc. And just minimalist booklet. Just gives sort of like production credit for each track. Yeah, basically, it's the best of Argent's selection. But what I like about this is most of the tracks on here are the full length album versions. The opening two cuts are probably their two best known songs, God Gave Rock and Roll to You and Hold Your Head Up, both of which hit the UK singles charts with 3-minute single edits. These are both the tracks on here are the full 7-minute album versions. You can say for other tracks like Keep Rolling, High Wire, Celebration, Sleep Won't Help, and it's kind of good stuff. Yeah, it's made me interested enough to go and try and explore and download or try and get hold of CDs or even vinyl of some of the other Argent stuff, because you know, they're a band I was aware of, heard a few tracks that I really liked, but never really explored until I kind of, and this has kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the potential of Argent as a kind of a pleasurable listening, and I'm going to explore them more. So yeah, so the only two reasons I get compilation albums these days is either for DJ purposes or a band that I haven't really explored, you know, because sometimes when you're DJing, if you're only trying to carry a memory stick, and I don't know, to give an example, a band I'm really into, Uriah Heep, for example, you know, why should I spend, if I want to take some Uriah Heep out on a DJ run with us, especially if I'm live DJing, a memory stick with, you know, with a Uriah Heep compilation album that'll have the ones that people want to hear, rather than take the entire discography. That's fair enough. Or, like I say, to explore a band I haven't come across. And yeah, good gateway into Argent. And I want to ask all you lot out there, both on Facebook and on YouTube, comment there and there. What Argent albums should I listen to first? You know, give me a couple of Argent albums to track down, and I will go and track them down. But Argent, God Gave Rock and Roll to You, the Greatest Hits, 2010. Okay, let's stop the final vinyl and our second guitar hero of the week. No bones about it, and absolutely no apologies. This is Santana and Festival from 1976. There's the front. There's the back. Whip this out. In the sleeve of the artwork. No run out group messages, but there we are, CBS Records there. Good stuff. Now, Santana shouldn't need any introduction to you. Carlos Santana, in my opinion, the all-time god of guitaring. My favourite guitarist, both to listen to and to try and emulate, although I failed miserably at trying to emulate him, but I have fun trying. His 8th or 9th album, somewhere in the region of that, I don't know, he used to bang them out at that rate, about one every 8 months in the 70s. A pretty sweet one. Tracks on here that are worth watching, worth listening to. Let the Children Play, one of my favourite Santana tracks, just a really kind of up-tempo, happy, bouncy tune. Let the Music Set You Free, Revelations, Reach Up the River, Try a Little Harder, Carnival, Gigando. It's just a corker. One of Santana's best in my opinion. You got it's the standard. Some of Santana's best oppos on here. You got Tom Costa on keyboards, Pablo Tellez on bass, Gaylord Birch on drums. There's a percussionist as well on here somewhere. I can't work out who it is. Paul Reckow on percussion. Just great stuff. Laying for some fantastic laid back jazz Latin influence kind of soft rock with some soaring guitar work that just kind of takes your mind into other dimensions. Santana once said that at times he believes he gets possessed by an angel and who uses his music to bless the people. I can believe that. I'm an atheist, but I can believe that to be true because I just get such a buzz off listening to Carlos play, and most of the guitarists I know, at least most guitarists I know, with soul will with a soul get the same vibe. The guy's a genius. Not much else to say. One of the best Santana albums. If you haven't really heard it, this is a good place to start. As Carlos, this is a good place to start. Festival by Santana, 1976. Absolutely corking. Oh well, that's it for this week. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you want to check out the radio shows, links are down there and over there, and also like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the kind of things that I say that YouTube tells me to tell on there. And also, when it comes to your comments, I want your feedback as well. Give me what is a good Argent album to go on to? I've got the greatest hits there, the first Argent stuff that I've ever really owned. For my chagrin, I know I'm an old bastard and she'll have every Argent album there is, but one of the bands that slipped me by. Krokus, am I too down on Change of Address? Is it got any redeeming features whatsoever? Pink Floyd Darkside Lemon, is it their best album? Or is it just the overhyped album? All your opinions are all valid. Just keep it polite down there and over there. So, until next week, peeps, I do want to try and get out of next week or so a one-off special showing my latest toy off to you. But, the case of finding time to record that, maybe I'll get done in the next couple of days. But watch out for that. But then I'll be back with another dozen next week. So until then, peeps, take care, be good to yourself, and I love you all. I'm out of here. Bye.